Preseason's over, friends. Let's do some mock drafts. Hey, I'm Red, and on this live broadcast and recording, I'm going to be doing mock drafts on 4 different sites. I'm going to be doing one on ESPN, I'm going to be doing one on Yahoo, I'm going to be doing one on NFL.com, and the last one I'm going to be doing on Fantasy Football Calculator. I really enjoy all 4 of these sites for different reasons, some more than others, but I do enjoy them. And I'm really excited about doing this first mock draft on ESPN because I'm really excited to get back off of the ground with ESPN. I've done a couple of drafts on ESPN.com this year, a couple of actual live drafts, and I've even done an auction draft. However, I'm still feeling like I'm going to join a couple more leagues before the season starts. I do guarantee I'm going to be joining a couple of NFL.com real drafts and leagues before the season starts, because I don't know, for some reason on the big 3 I kind of want to have at least 3 teams. I'm pretty in tune with fantasy football this year. The only thing that concerns me is that I have actually missed out on some drafts where I've signed up for a league, and I'm not a big fan of missing out on drafts. I'm really not. I hate missing out on drafts. Because I like to be in control of the team that I draft. But you're very loud. But I knew that was coming. I like to be at every single draft in every league that I join, because I like to be in control of my own destiny. If I screw up, if I don't have a good year in a league, it'll be because I caused it. I don't want the auto draft to cause it for me. Okay, here we go. Let's do number 1. Going ahead and mute that. And I'm also not going to take part in any chat chicanery or anything along those lines. I tried to do a video earlier where I was on Fantasy Football Calculator doing a mock draft, and I was going to start with that and move on to other sites. However, I got interrupted by animals. I'll just put it to you that way. And I'm hoping that it goes a little more smoothly this time. I'm probably not going to count on there being no distractions whatsoever in the background, because chances are there's going to be noise. I live in a house where there's always people around at any given hour. So just keep in mind that there's probably going to be sound from other people in the background. My mic is also pretty extraordinarily powerful in the sense that it can take sound from anywhere in my house, basically. So with that in mind, just take into account that you're probably not going to just get my voice and my voice alone. I did think about getting a USB microphone, a separate USB microphone, so that I could actually pull that off, but I'd have the money to do it. It's just I want to see if I could pull it off here. Just pull off the headset. I think it'll go okay, but it does take so much it's not like a noise there's no noise canceling here at all. You basically hear everything in my house at any given time. Any possible noise, you'll hear it. Which isn't something that I'm all too excited about per se, but it's just something that if you're going to watch these videos, you'll just have to get used to. Like right there you go, door opening. You're going to hear all the sounds, and I apologize for that, but it has to be done. This is the best possible headset that I could afford, and it's multi-purpose because I could also use it for gaming consoles as well. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go on ahead and do the mock drafting. I'm going to try to do as much analysis as I can of the picks outside of my own and including my own, but I wouldn't count on there being anything too special Um, you've heard a ton of analysis from other more established experts, so I'm just going to offer a couple of pointers from me personally on what I would do as opposed to what experts would do per se. And I also have a couple of tips that I really want to talk about too that I actually have not gotten a chance to talk about until now. Adrian Peterson, number one off the board as he is ranked number one on ESPN's rankings. LaShawn McCoy gone next. Going to assume that Jamal Charles goes off the board here. And with that in mind, I'm probably just going to go on ahead and take Matt Forte and blah bam. If you're in the top four picks, you're going to want, in a standard league, you're going to want to get one of Peterson, McCoy, Charles, or Forte. In a standard league. In a PPR league, I might have considered Calvin Johnson there, for example. Maybe even Jimmy Graham, because I'm pretty high on Jimmy Graham in a PPR league. But because it's a standard league, you want to go for one of the top four running backs if you're in the top four. So that's what I did with Forte. And then Lacy and Calvin Johnson off the board next. That's pretty standard. I'm going to offer 11 tips as we're going along here, so be patient with me. And I'm not going to write them down or anything for you in the description on YouTube, so you'll just have to pay attention. Number one, this is my number one rule: be flexible. Do not be rigid and remain stuck to a pre-draft strategy. I say this to so many people who think, okay, I'm going to go for a zero wide receiver strategy, or I'm going to go for a zero running back strategy. Do not stay set on one particular strategy, okay? Strategies are best left for mock drafts. You want to try out strategies in mock drafts just to see, okay, maybe a zero running back strategy might actually be profitable for me. But otherwise, just don't. Just don't take strategies into a real draft, because you want to be flexible. You want to go based on what is actually happening in the draft. I mean, by all means, go with the pre-draft strategy into a mock draft, because what is it going to hurt to go to be rigid in a mock draft? But in a real draft, you want to stay flexible. You want to be able to change things up on the fly. Number two, do not believe in fantasy football absolutes, and that is to say, you don't say that you'll never draft someone because value may present itself where it wouldn't have otherwise. A classic example of this was last year. I was drafting with a friend that is pretty fantasy football knowledgeable. He didn't want to draft Chris Johnson. Well, big surprise. I mean, who does want to draft Chris Johnson, you know? But it turns out in the one league where we do draft against each other every year, Chris Johnson wound up in a position where he saw value in him, and he took him. So there you go. Yeah, just do not believe that you're absolutely not going to take anybody, because there's a distinct chance you might take them if value presents itself. Tip number three, if you're a newbie, do not listen to the advice that others in your draft are giving you. I'm just going to put it to you this way. Everyone else in your draft knows just as much about fantasy football as you do, and in some cases, they're trying to actively throw you off with bad advice, especially if you're new to fantasy football. Just take it from experience. You do not want to listen to advice that anyone is giving you in a real live draft. You want to trust your own instincts, and you want to trust your board. You want to trust ADP values. Do not, if you're a newbie, I would honestly just go on ahead and trust ADP before I would trust anyone else. Trust anyone in your draft. Listen to your gut. Go based on average drafted position. Go based on value, and you should be fine. Here's a good tip. Fantasy football is not just skill. Okay, luck is involved too. Don't listen to anyone who tells you that fantasy football is all skill. It's not, okay? You you have to be lucky too, especially around playoff time if you do make the playoffs. The fact of the matter is, honestly, I have had many leagues where I thought, okay, I'm a shoo-in to make the finals of the playoff finals. But as it turns out, certain teams, certain players on my teams weren't playing, certain starters weren't playing, so I was basically stuck with my bench players who may or may not be able to put up quality performances for the playoffs. And, of course, in some cases they didn't. My point is this: luck does matter. Don't let anyone tell you differently. We'll get to some more tips here in a bit, but it's about time for me to pick. I'm going to assume Zach Stacy goes off the board here. And I'm kind of torn right now because I kind of want to wait on a wide receiver because there's so many good wide receivers. And I think I will, and I'll go on ahead and take Alfred Morris. Because Alfred Morris, as a RB2 in a standard draft, is pretty sick. He's not a PPR magnet, so I would not recommend taking him as one of your top 2 running backs in PPR. It just, I mean, yes, the standard value will still apply. I just do not want to take him as one of my top 2 running backs in a PPR league where receptions matter so much. But it's also worth noting, look how many wide receivers were still on the board. Marshall, Julio, Nelson, Jeffrey, Brown, Cobb, all guys that I would feel comfortable with as my wide receiver 1. And then you have guys like Keenan Allen, guys like Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, guys that I'm not necessarily 100% confident about as my wide receiver 1, but guys that I am relatively confident enough to the point where if I had them as my wide receiver 1, I wouldn't be too upset. I don't normally go running back first 2 picks, but with the way that the draft was going, I was probably looking at either Reggie Bush or Ben Tate as my running back 2, or maybe even Ryan Matthews. And I don't mind Ben Tate. I would just prefer to have Alfred Morris. That's just my personal opinion. And at the rate we're going, it does look like I'm probably going to end up with Cobb, which is probably the worst case scenario at wide receiver 1, but it's not terrible either, to be honest. I can live with him as my wide receiver 1, because as long as he stays healthy, he's going to put up wide receiver 1 numbers, along with Jordy Nelson. And somebody just took Julius Thomas, so never mind. I'm going to be taking Antonio Brown, who I am much more confident about as a wide receiver 1 than, say, Randall Cobb. I think that he is clearly the number 1 option in Pittsburgh, and Big Ben and Brown have a very deep connection. Apparently, this is probably not 100% accurate, but him and that Antonio Brown was one of the most consistent players in fantasy football last season. He was putting up solid numbers every game. So that's the kind of guy you want as a wide receiver 1 if you're not getting, say, Megatron or Demarius or Dez. You want someone that's going to put up big numbers, or at the very least solid numbers every week. Someone that's going to produce for you every week, and in that case, Antonio Brown is definitely that guy. Let's do a couple more tips here really quickly. Number 6. Wait, actually, no, we're not on number 6. We're on number 5. Sorry about that. Number 5, when in doubt, trust your gut. If you genuinely feel that you like, say, one guy over the other, like here, for example, if you like Pierre Garçon over Larry Fitzgerald, take him. Don't question yourself. Don't second-guess yourself. Just take him. If you feel confident about it, then do it. I've seen far too many people go against their gut feeling and regret it later. You don't want to not trust your gut, especially in fantasy football, because trusting your gut opinion actually does help you a lot in fantasy football. At least as far as I'm concerned. Maybe it doesn't go as well for you, but for me it goes pretty well. Okay, now number 6, be respectful of others even if they're making decisions that you don't agree with. I don't like the idea of making fun of someone for a bad pick. Not just because it's poor form, not just because it's kind of childish in a way, but also because, truth be told, there might be some decisions you make that other people might laugh at. And do you really want to get laughed at for your decisions? Of course not. I just tend to believe trust yourself. Trust yourself and don't make fun of others for their trust in other guys. Like, even if they take someone like, oh, I don't know, Bishop Sankey in the 4th round, considering what we know about him and that right now Sean Green and Dexter McCluster are actually more viable options and are probably going to be higher on the depth chart than Sankey. I'm not going to make fun of him or her for taking Bishop Sankey because Bishop Sankey has pretty high upside. I'm not going to make fun of somebody taking Chris Johnson because Chris Johnson can put up very good numbers if he stays healthy and gets back to form. My point is, don't make fun of anyone for any bad decisions. It's just bad form. My next pick's coming up pretty soon, but for now I'm going to do one more tip. Actually, no, I'm not because my pick is actually up right now. Okay. We'll get to it in a minute. But Roddy White's going to be my pick here. I don't normally... See, I'm not the kind of guy that absolutely goes with, like, the top option on a ranking, per se, on a site's ranking. But Roddy White is pretty... I feel pretty confident about Roddy White. I would actually value Roddy White as a high-end wide receiver 2 and maybe even a potential wide receiver 1. But, of course, that depends on if Roddy White stays healthy. I think as a wide receiver 2, he's a great play. We're getting to my next pick here. Gerhardt, I'm looking at. Crabtree probably won't make it to me because of the auto pick. Worst case scenario, I'll probably wind up picking Rashad Jennings as my flex because in this situation, I want to have a running back as my flex. Just has potential in a standard league to put up more points. Crabtree, Vernon Davis, and I will take Toby Gerhardt, who poses to be, if nothing else, a workhorse back in Jacksonville. It's not necessarily true that he's going to be a top running back, but he's going to get the opportunity to be a top running back. Okay, now let's get to my 7th tip. If you want a player, then take him even if it would be a reach. Like the aforementioned Bishop Sankey. Even if it would be a reach to take him, there's no denying the guy has a high upside. Very high upside. If you want to take him, then just take him. Especially if you think that if by the next time it gets around to your pick that you won't be able to get him, I mean, reach for him if you have to. If you really want someone that badly, take him. It's not rocket science. Always pay attention to what is happening during the draft. You want to look at what other teams need. You want to look at trends occurring at a specific point before your next pick. You want to see if there are position runs on the horizon or are already occurring. Basically, this goes back to my be flexible tip. You do not want to stay stuck in a particular strategy because because drafts are so volatile. They're so unpredictable that any strategy goes out the window probably around your 2nd or 3rd pick, depending on where you're drafting. I mean, it's just that simple. More than anything, in a draft, you need to be aware of what other teams are doing. That is the key. You want to be aware of what other teams are doing. You want to be aware of what is happening while you are waiting. You do not want to drift off into the nothingness. You want to pay attention to what is going on. I've got a couple more tips here, at least for now. Take in as much information as you can before the draft. Injury news, depth chart news, opinions, both ones that are valuable and ones that aren't. Rankings. Use all of this information to your advantage and be more knowledgeable than some people in your draft. Because having knowledge is power in fantasy football. You want to have as much knowledge as possible going into a fantasy football draft. You want to know, okay, who is number 1 on this depth chart? Or, okay, what injuries is this guy dealing with? Or that guy dealing with? Or what does this guy have to say about these 2 quarterbacks, and which one should I take over the other? You don't follow them as a gospel per se. Don't follow everything like gospel, but use all of it together, all of that information to make yourself more knowledgeable as a fantasy football player. This is especially useful if you're a noob. You want to have as much information as you possibly can going into a draft. Now, it is probably possible that you could have too much information and basically have information overload. But if you go back to one of my other videos about what sites I like to go to, like fantasy, that roundup rundown. I have already forgotten which one that is per se. But I guess my point is, you don't want to go in without any sort of information. You want to be prepared. And as it turns out, I have just noticing right now that I did not load the ESPN app window until just now. So you basically have been staring at that mock draft lobby for 6 rounds, about to be 7. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I did not realize that. Well, now you can actually see what has been going on for sure. Like I'd be lying to you, I guess. As you can see, I did pick up Forte, Morris, Brown, White, and Gerhardt. I wasn't lying to you about what I picked up. And they just took Matt Ryan, which kind of upsets me because I really like Matt Ryan. But I guess I'll go on ahead and take Russell Wilson then, because I am kind of terrified that somebody will take him. And once you get past a certain group of quarterbacks, they're basically interchangeable, and it really depends on which one you like the most. Once Ryan went off the board, Russell Wilson's my guy. I am really excited about Russell Wilson this year. I think that he is going to be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy, at the very least. And I realize, yeah, he's playing in the same division as the 49ers and the Rams and the Cardinals, all great defenses, and I'm not disputing that. But Russell Wilson is a top quality quarterback, and he's going to show it this season. I think that he's going to put up really good numbers. I'm probably higher on Russell Wilson than most people, admittedly, and I'm okay with that. I am just really high on him this year. Let's see. Okay, this guy doesn't need a tight end. This guy doesn't need a tight end, so this guy needs a tight end, so I'm probably going to take Jordan Cameron here if he is on the board here, and he is. I'm not normally the kind of guy that likes to fill in the blanks, but ESPN's rankings are so whack that I could probably get away with filling in the blanks, because there's going to be some guys that are way far down on the rankings that shouldn't be. Okay, now that I've gotten everything situated as far as the screen is concerned, again, I'm deeply sorry for not knowing that beforehand. It won't happen again. I will make sure it won't happen again. Let's get to a couple more tips here. Know your league settings. I cannot stress that enough. Know your league settings. Knowing your league settings before entering a draft may already put you at a direct advantage over many of your fellow draftees. You want to use knowledge to your advantage. I am in a league every year with a ton of people that don't really follow the settings all that much. There's like a couple of people that do, but like most of them don't. So they wind up drafting guys in a PPR league that they should not be drafting over certain other guys, like Marshawn Lynch being taken over, say, DeMarco Murray. In a PPR league, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it personally. But again, that goes back to my previous tip of just using all the knowledge you can obtain to your advantage. It's harder to sift out information that isn't pertinent per se, but once you actually play fantasy football long enough and really get a handle of it, you should be fine. You should be able to sift through knowledge pretty easily, and opinions and all of that information and all that. Believe it or not, it's actually okay to draft a kicker before the last round. I know that this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, especially among the experts that act like, oh, if you draft a kicker before the last round, you're the dumbest person in the world. Stephen Gostkowski is more than worthy enough of being picked, say, second to last round or even third to last round. More than worthy. Now, someone who takes him in the mid-level rounds, like 8th, 9th round, yeah, that's kind of dumb. But all things considered, as like a 12th, 13th round pick, like basically a couple of picks before your last pick, Stephen Gostkowski's a monster. And I want him in every possible league that I can get him in. Okay, it's up to me now. I actually have more to say about that tip, but I'll get to that in a second. I want to make this pick right about now. Okay, Kerry Robinson as my 4th running back. I am not necessarily all that high on Kerry Robinson. I mean, I like him, but I'm not incredibly high on him, per se. Having said that, I really think that as a RB4, as he would be here, I think he's got really good value. And I'm getting notice that wide receiver is getting a little less deep, but it's still pretty deep. I just want to point out to you, 131st, Tavon Austin. I mean, I'm not probably not going to be very deep, but like even if I get, say, a DeAndre Hopkins or a Riley Cooper as my 3rd wide receiver, I'm going to feel pretty good, especially because I already have Brown and White as my 2 top wide receivers. Depth is okay to have. I guess this is going to be an impromptu tip. Depth is okay to have, but you want to have quality starters. Unless you feel so confident about your drafting ability that you feel like you could get decent talent later on in the draft if you say, like, don't draft any running backs. I think with this pick I will be taking Riley Cooper just because, really, even though Jeremy Maclin is ahead of him on the depth chart, Riley Cooper is probably more reliable. Okay, next tip. Next part of that tip that I was doing before I started drafting again. You don't have to wait to draft a top kicker. Hell, you don't have to wait to draft a top defense. There are so many people that tell you that it's actually okay, more than okay, to stream defenses, that is, pick a defense based on matchups. And while that is definitely true and viable, I would rather have the Seahawks defense. I would rather have a defense I know week in and week out is going to be a possible top defense. I do know, though, that chances are you're probably not going to land the Seahawks defense at a spot where it would actually be viable to take them. They already got taken, I think. I want to see where they got taken. Okay, yeah, they were the number 82 pick. I would never take them at number 82. Never. I would never take them that early because there's not that much of a difference between the number 1 defense and, say, the Bengals defense a couple of spots below them. If you can get a top-level defense within the last 3 to 4 rounds, like if you like the 3rd or 4th to last round, do it. Especially if you have a plan of attack of what you're going to do, like wide receivers. Like if you know like some deep level wide receivers that you want, or deep level running backs that you want, and you think you're going to be there. But beyond that, I wouldn't probably draft a defense to the last couple of rounds. But unless you're confident that you can land some good sleepers in the last couple of rounds. I do have more to talk about, but I'm going to go on ahead and try to get to the next couple of picks here. I have to say that I really like some of the options here at the positions are going at the spots are going at. Jeremy Hill at 109th. I don't believe the people. I don't believe the article that says that Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard are going to absolutely 100% split carries down the middle. But I do think that Jeremy Hill is going to get a lot of opportunities this year, and if you keep that in mind, you definitely want to get him, and that's a good spot for him. Um, I'm kind of torn here, actually, between two guys. I kind of want Terrence West or Carlos Hyde. But I do kind of feel like Carlos Hyde has a little more upside as uh, Ben Tate, to me, I like Terrence West, but I think that Ben Tate and his injury concerns are kind of overblown. I think that he will be the number one option, and it won't even be close. Um, I'm really high on Carlos Hyde. I don't necessarily think that all the same. I'm not high on Frank Gore. I think that Frank Gore being on the wrong side of 30 is actually a bit of an overestimation or a bit of over-analysis. I think that Frank Gore is going to be just fine. I just think that Carlos Hyde has upside too. Um, I'm kind of looking down the board here, and there's a lot of interesting options I could go with. But I really need a fourth wide receiver. I would go for a quarterback here, but I can wait on that, and especially now because your instinct would say, okay, draft Andy Dalton. Same bye week. I do. That's one thing I do suggest. I know that bye weeks are not all that important per se, especially when it comes to like your starters, but with your backups it matters. I'm gonna go on and take Tavon Austin then, because I need a fourth wide receiver more than I need anything else, personally. Um, okay. Let's talk about some. Okay. I don't really have like in-depth analysis here on these next couple of like I have two lists here. I don't have in-depth analysis or like stats to back me up per se. These are just guys that I'm either really high on or not a big fan of. Um, I love drafting this year a couple of guys in particular. Toby Gerhart, obviously, you can see that I drafted him as my flex. I love him this year. Even if he doesn't really pan out all that well, he's going to get the carries that have the opportunity to pan out. I'm pretty high on Rashad Jennings, who I was also looking at along with Toby Gerhart, especially in PPR. Gio Bernard. I'm still on the Geo train. I don't buy people who think that he's going to be even a borderline wide running back too. I don't buy that. Especially in PPR leagues, he's going to be a running RB1. He's going to be an RB1 in PPR. I am 110% confident about that. I'm kind of on Michael Crabtree, and that's kind of a rational, because there's nothing from Michael Crabtree that would suggest that nothing to suggest from Crabtree that he would be worth it per se. But I like his upside, and he has shown in the past that he can be a viable fantasy option. I don't know if I'd like him as a wide receiver 2, but as a wide receiver 3, I would love him. I would love Crabtree at WR3. I really would. Another guy I'm really high on, Cordarrelle Patterson, especially if your settings take into account returns, because then he becomes ultra valuable. I'm not taking a defense here, so you can forget that. I will be taking a guy by the name of Brandon Cooks, because that's another tip. If you can get rookie wide receivers at a good value, take them. Absolutely take them. There's no reason not to take them if you can get a good value for them. Let's see. How many picks do I have left? 4. Okay. I have 5 wide receivers. I do need to be looking into getting a backup tight end, because even though I like Jordan Cameron, I'm not necessarily 100% sold on him to the point where I can not have a backup for him. I'm going to take Antonio Gates, because I mean, Ladarius Green is going to be a high upside player, but I'm not taking him above Antonio Gates because Antonio Gates is going to be the number one, at least at the beginning of the year for San Diego. I'm also a pretty big fan of Kelvin Benjamin, who went off the board, and that actually kind of made me upset because I kind of wanted him as my fifth wide receiver. But I'm okay with Brandon Cooks as my fifth, too. Another guy that I'm high on. It's a rational kind of love because he should be a top-tier talent again. But I'm also high enough on him to the point where I could totally accept him being my first-round pick. And that's Jimmy Graham. In a PPR league, I'm thinking of drafting him top 5 if McCoy, Charles, Peterson, and Megatron are off the board. I'm considering taking him at 5 because not only does he offer incredible value, incredible numbers in PPR, I actually think value-wise, he offers incredible value at the end of the first in PPR leagues. In standard leagues, I think that he has a value of a low-end first-round pick. There are many people that I've noticed have said that, excuse me, that they would not necessarily feel all that great if they drafted him in the first round, if they drafted Jimmy Graham. I would feel ecstatic because I think that he puts up the kind of numbers that make him a wide receiver 1. That is one thing I always say to people who are weary about taking Jimmy Graham in the first round. If you keep in mind that his numbers are basically the equivalent of a wide receiver 1, it becomes a more than acceptable pick. I would go as far as to say I would only take Megatron over him in a PPR league and maybe Dez and Demarius over him in a standard. I just think that his value at his position is second to none, and that's just my opinion. Getting down to the nitty-gritty here, I'm still not that now in this kind of situation. I am absolutely justified in not taking a defense or a kicker here because obviously the auto picks are picking defenses and kickers for them. I can't necessarily fault that, really. I am just not going to draft one. I can see value elsewhere. I do need a backup quarterback, and I have a couple of ideas with that. Okay, there goes more kickers. And I have 2 guys in particular I'm really high on that are other than 2 guys I'm going to mention here in a minute. Joe Flacco and Ryan Tannehill, but I'm going to go ahead and draft Flacco as my backup. I have 2 personal favorite backup options. I love Blake Bortles this year. I think that he is a totally viable option. I'm going to go on and draft the Saints defense, even though I'm not necessarily all that high on them per se. I think they're the best of what's left. I'm really high on Blake Bortles because he is clearly the best quarterback in Jacksonville, and it's only a matter of time before he starts. I would rather ensure that I have a quarterback that isn't going to have a bye in the first, like in the week 4, week 5, week 6, whatever, because it's no guarantee that he's going to start. Excuse me. Before, say, like the middle point of the season, but like for a guy that has a bye week, say week 8, week 9, week 10, whatever, I want Bortles because Bortles has potential to put up quarterback 1 numbers. I think he's a quarterback 2, no matter what, especially in deeper leagues. But as the season rolls on, he could become a QB1 possibility. And then Jake Locker. Jake Locker, injury concerns are always going to be there, but he was putting up QB1 numbers before he got hurt last year. Just worth noting. And then there's a couple of guys that I'm pretty big on not drafting at their average draft position. Ben Roethlisberger. Look, Ben Roethlisberger is a good quarterback. I'm not going to dispute that. I just think that Steelers offense is in trouble. I think that the defense is going to have to carry them this year. That offense isn't going to get it done. And hey, we're actually done with this draft here, so I'm going to go ahead and take my kicker here, Matt Bryant, and bam, I'm done. I did pretty well, even while I wasn't really even paying attention all that much. Okay, let's bring up this. Okay, all right. Big Ben, I'm not high on at all. There are so many other quarterbacks I'd rather take even as my backup. I'd rather have Andy Dalton. I'd rather have Joe Flacco. I'd rather have Ryan Tannehill. I'd rather have Jake Locker over Big Ben. Absolutely would rather have all of those guys over Big Ben. I just have more faith in them. All right. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Yahoo League, Yahoo and all of that, and go ahead and do a mock draft there. Another guy I'm not necessarily high on at his average draft position is Arian Foster. I get people who draft Arian Foster. I do, but all the same, I don't want him where he's being drafted. If it was like a round later, I'd probably draft Foster because he offers good upside, high risk, high reward potential there. But like as a late first, early second, I'm not really a fan. I'm actually going to do a 14-teamer here because I haven't really done a 14-teamer in a while outside of, say, Fantasy Pros' Draft Wizard. I kind of want to do a 14-teamer and see how it goes. There's pretty interesting. Like, I think that 14-teamers actually don't offer that much more of difficulty, say, than 12 teamers or 10-teamers, whatever you. I think that all things considered, they're not that difficult if you know what you're doing. But okay, Steven Jackson is just a guy that every year I am not really a big fan of because I keep thinking he's gonna break down. He's gonna break down. He's gonna break down. He hasn't yet, but especially this year with the competition at running back, Jacquez Rogers and Devontae Freeman. I think that they're going to start taking carries away from Steven Jackson. That actually hurts his value even more. Never mind the fact that he might get hurt again. But there are two that are pretty big ones, personally. First, the Seahawks defense. I get that the Seahawks defense are going to be the top defense in fantasy. Okay? They're going to be the top defense. I'm not taking them in the middle rounds of the draft, because there's so much more value out there at other positions, and the drop-off from number 1 to, like, number 10 isn't all that steep. And then this one is probably going to get me laughed off the face of the earth. Peyton Manning. Okay, let's get right to it. Let me explain. I think that Peyton Manning is a very solid second-round pick. I'm not going to fault anyone who picks him in the first, per se. He's not going to put up the same numbers he put up last year. He's not going to put up record-breaking numbers last year, which would more than justify him being placed in the first round of any draft. But, come on. There are other guys like Jimmy Graham, Demaryius Thomas, Dez Bryant. I am not taking Peyton Manning over any of those guys. When I could I'm just saying, like, even guys like Marshawn Lynch, workhorse backs, I probably would take over Manning. I would want a quarterback like Manning, Brees, or Rodgers, sure, but I'm not going to overdraft either, especially when there's value at other positions. It's basically the same logic as the Seahawks defense. I'm not going to overdraft someone when there's other value elsewhere. But, I mean, by all means, take Peyton Manning in the first round. I think that that's about as safe of a pick as you could make, personally. I just would not take him in the first, personally, over certain guys. Now, if I was at the end of the first, beginning of the second, yes, I'd take Manning in a heartbeat. Otherwise, I just wouldn't. Is there anything else worth noting? Okay, since we're actually on Yahoo, this could basically go for Yahoo, but this could also be for others. Do not view the pre-draft rankings of any fantasy football site as the be-all, end-all. You'd be wise to have your own rankings particularly, but use average draft position more so than sites' pre-draft rankings. I think that's a better indication of who is going where and the value of certain players than, say, the pre-draft rankings. I just don't really have much fit, especially in ESPN's. ESPN's is horrible. Kelvin Benjamin is ranked as the number 66 receiver on ESPN's rankings. He is rated lower than 3 Oakland Raiders receivers. That's with Matt Schaub currently as the starter. I rest my case. I'm actually kind of interested to see how this will go because 14-teamers are a little difficult in the sense that if you don't know what you're doing, you could get steamrolled quickly. But if you do know what you're doing, you could actually make a killing. Of course, I say that, and I'm going to get destroyed. But, you know. One thing I have noticed going through all of the major fantasy football sites... Ooh, yeah, I should have done that. Okay. Is that McCoy, Charles, Forte, and Peterson are the unquestioned top 4, but nobody has any idea how to accurately rank them, because how to place them, because could be any combination of McCoy, Charles, Forte, and Peterson, and it wouldn't surprise me. Okay, other than Forte being number 1, but like Charles, McCoy, or Peterson is the number 1. I've seen so many places at this point that it doesn't really surprise me anymore. It does look like at least that there are people here, so there actually is drafting happening. Though, now we're taking a long time to wait here. Excuse me. Calvin Johnson off the board instead of Matt Forte, which is interesting. In a PPR league, I would support that, but this isn't PPR. Though it is worth noting that here there are 3 wide receivers as opposed to flex spot, so that is worth noting. Peyton Manning goes off the board at number 5. Now, I wouldn't do that at all. Jimmy Graham at 6, I would consider, but when Matt Forte, Eddie Lacy, and when Eddie Lacy and Matt Forte are on the board, I just would not do it. I just wouldn't do it. Julio Jones 7th. Is this a PPR? I'm not sure what's going on here. How in the world does Matt Forte drop to 8th? I mean, I get this is a mock draft and all, but Matt Forte should not drop to 8th in any scenario. There we go. Matt Forte taken off the board. Matt Forte should not go off the board at 8th. That's Cam Newton. Okay, mock draft ruined. Eddie Lacy 10th. Yeah, mock draft ruined. Cam Newton at 9th overall. There goes that mock draft. Look at how many quality wide receivers are still on the board, though. Dez, Demarius, AJ, Julio Jones was taken, but Brandon Marshall's still there. You got Marshawn Lynch, who I would be more than happy with at this point. Not Dez. Lacy, Marshawn Lynch. Well, darn. Okay. Demarius just got taken. And I guess Dez is going to go off the board, which I'm not taking Monte Ball. Monte Ball has not proven to me that he's worthy of being picked at this point, even in a 14-teamer. I'm actually going to go with maybe not a zero running back strategy per se, but I'm absolutely gonna take two wide receivers here in Green and Marshall, because those are the two absolute top tier wide receiver ones still remaining, and I want to at least have that advantage. Um, Even once it gets around to like the next pick, I would be okay with some of the running backs that are still on the board, like Ben Tate and Reggie Bush. I'd be okay with those guys. So off the board, Monte Ball and DeMarco Murray. I I do think that decision is going to come back to bite me though, because in a 14-teamer especially, I mean, yes, I have elite talent already at the wide receiver spot, but I don't really have an elite level running back. But I guess at 14, what is this guy doing? Why? I'm threatened to chat and just say, what the hell are you doing? I don't get it. Okay, this has been something that has been boiling under the surface for me for a while, but now especially I'm going to just go on ahead and say it. What do people have to gain by being jerks in fantasy mock drafts? What do people have to gain by ruining a mock draft? I just don't get it. Would you, if my point, I guess my argument is, would you, if you wouldn't do it in a real draft? Okay, more importantly, why would you sign up for a mock draft just to be, just to screw everything up? I I'm so threatened to chat because this is just stupid. I don't blame the people that are leaving because my mind is blown by how dumb some of these people, how dumb this is. Why do people feel the need to ruin mock drafts? Would they do that in a real draft? Of course not, because they would lose. I kind of wish, in a way, that every mock draft would cost money, because then nobody would be taking Houston's defense in the second round, or Cleveland's defense in the second round, or Cam Newton in the first. Nobody would be dumb enough to do that. It just, I know it's something that I really shouldn't be spending so much venom on, but why would you ruin a mock draft? Why? What gain do you really have from doing that? What's so fun about ruining a mock draft? I just don't get it. Um, but I guess, hey, if you want to ruin a mock draft, feel free to do so, because then I'll just get better players because of that. I mean, you want to ruin the mock, you want to have a bad mock draft, that just gives me more players to run with, so, okay. Thank you. I'll get players at really good values. That's nice. I mean, that's how I always see it. It Even if people are idiots, like, okay, now somebody's taking a fucking, I know I just swore. I don't really like to swear in a mock draft when I'm doing a video, but I don't get it. Why do people feel the need to try to ruin mock drafts? Because, truth be told, if this were a real draft and somebody made those picks, now I would just think, yeah, you're dumb, and I'm going to beat you every time we play. I, I, I'm overreacting, I'm sure, but it's just, there's no need for it. Okay, now Ray Rice in the third is actually a more defensible pick than both of his first two picks of Cam Newton and Cleveland's defense. Way more defensible. Because even though he's suspended for the first two games, and now Russell Wilson goes off the board at 30. Okay, I'm beginning to think that Michael and Jennifer are the same person. Okay, Ryan Matthews off the board. Um, wow, this is interesting. They actually gift wrapped me certain players. Le'Veon Bell. I'm going to take Victor Cruz because there's, of course, no reason why Victor Cruz should have lasted this long. And Rashad Jennings as my RB1. Thank you again for being dumbasses. I am probably one of 2 or 3 people that actually is drafting for real that is still here. Um, I'm sure that the people that are drafting all of these dumb players are probably laughing their asses off or whatever. Maybe they're all in the same conversation. They're laughing their asses off. I'm laughing my way to the bank. Well, I guess if it was a real draft, but even in a mock draft, I'm laughing my way to the bank because I'm kicking everyone's ass. I've got by far the best wide receiver core. Oh, now she drafts. Now she actually. Well, okay. Russell Wilson is a probably. Excuse me. A veritable QB1. Okay, and Pierre Garcon. I don't know why I said it like Travis Benjamin. Did he just take the worst player on the board? Okay, I'm gonna go on and say bravo. This is the best worst draft ever. It had to be said. This is the best worst draft ever. Now Seattle's defense. Wait, did Keith? Oh no, he drafted a kicker. He's the one that drafted Dan Carpenter. Okay, well, I guess when you consider that 2 defenses were taken before Seattle, before the fourth round, I can actually kind of defend him taking Seattle in the fourth. Um, I actually wasn't really prepared for a group of people ruining this mock draft. I wasn't prepared for it. Um, it does give me more entertainment value, though. I have to admire someone who is so willing to ruin a mock draft that they will commit to it for rounds upon rounds. I mean, by all means, I appreciate the entertainment value, if nothing else. And I'm sure that many other people wouldn't feel that way. And I know I went on a rant about it before, but come on. It's still very enjoyable. Like I was also threatened to say I'm actually laughing about this because there's no point in getting angry, I guess, over a mock draft. It's dumb to me to waste so much effort on a mock draft. Um, Maybe he's doing it for for a fantasy guy's analysis, just to get like this is the worst team ever analysis. That's possible too. Um, I could actually understand that. I have no idea what I'm going to be left with as my second running back here, because I'm going to assume that both Bell and Tate and I guess even Gore are going to be off the board. So I'm probably looking at like Chris Johnson, Bishop Sankey, Lamar Miller as my second running back, which isn't ideal, but you know, I'll I guess I'll just take that as it goes. Um, okay, Michael's pick is coming up in 2 picks. Here we go. Who is the worst rated player? Brady Quinn. He's going to take Brady Quinn with the next pick, right? Jordan Cameron off the board. Oh, he takes Johnny Football. That's actually a more defensible pick. That's a defensible pick. Even compared to some of his other picks, that's a defensible pick. And Emmanuel Sanders, that's another defensible pick. Okay, maybe Jennifer actually isn't just screwing up on purpose. You know, maybe Jennifer just thought, okay, taking Russell. Well, Jennifer actually hasn't really been that terrible. Like Russell Wilson in the third is kind of a reach, but it's not really that bad. Okay, Ben Tate makes it to me. Thank you. All right. Now who do I take here? Like, I was thinking maybe Jay Cutler, but I think Matt Ryan's off the board. I don't think there's a really viable tight end option, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and draft Jay Cutler. I'm not really sold on that. I probably could have made a better decision there, but there's still depth to be had later, and I'm okay with drafting a good quarterback at that spot, especially because the next auto pick was a quarterback. So get the quarterback while you can. Jeremy Maclin off the board. Michael's pick is coming up in 2 picks. I'm still rooting for Julian Edelman. I'm still rooting for actually no, Joe Webb is the lowest rated player. Okay, I'm rooting for Joe Webb. Now that I noticed him, I'm rooting for Joe Webb. Darren Sproles is actually a defensible pick at this stage. See, now that's not fun anymore, because now he's actually making somewhat defensible picks. Travis Benjamin is his number 1. My God. That's the number 1 wide receiver. That's probably the best thing. That's probably the funniest thing I've seen in any mock draft so far. That is amazing. I thought I was gonna actually, now that I think about it, I thought I was gonna do like an NFL and fantasy football calculator draft. I probably still will. It's just that I may need to take a break for a minute here in a bit. I'm really excited. Like this Michael guy, like, it's an event now whenever he picks, so I'm actually pretty excited to see what he does next. Yeah, I'm not really sure what direction I'm going to take here with the next couple of picks. I mean, I have a somewhat of an idea, but by the time it gets back to me, it's looking a lot like Stephen Ridley and Colin Kaepernick are going to be best options. I mean, like, Carlos Hyde I'm pretty high on, though, so. And I do know I'm going to have to take... In a 14-team league, I'm probably going to have to take a tight end relatively soon. Because even if I get a top-level talent at tight end, I mean, even if I get if I wait like a couple more rounds, like until the next time I pick for a tight end, I don't think I'm going to have a good option there, really. Just looking based on what's available, Kyle Rudolph, Jason Witten, Kyle Rudolph just got taken. Jason Witten, Greg Olsen, Jordan Reed, Dennis Pitta, and Zach Ertz. I would actually be okay with any of those 5 guys as my tight end 1, but I don't know by the time it gets back to me that any of those guys will even be available, which is something I am actually concerned about. So if one of those guys is available at that point, I'm taking them and not looking back. There goes Witten. I'm really high on Pierre Thomas as a PPR guy, but not as a standard, because I'd actually rather have, say, Mark Ingram or Kerry Robinson in a standard. Chris Johnson finally off the board. That's possibly a steal if he turns out to be anywhere remotely close to where he used to be. Greg Olsen off the board. This isn't looking good. I'm probably going to have to either reach for a tight end or just wait. Trent Richardson. Now he's making sensible picks based on position, based on ADP and rank, and just now everything that I once knew makes no sense. Now all of a sudden Michael's making completely defensible picks, and I can't disparage him whatsoever for it. I can't do it. Jordan Reed, that almost certainly means Zach Ertz is going to be taken here. Yep. So I'm not going to be looking at a tight end right now. And there goes Ertz. Okay, I'm not going to be looking at a tight end here. I'm going to be going for depth. Bishop Sankey. I'll take Bishop Sankey. And I'm kind of torn right now. Do I want to take another running back or do I want to go for a wide receiver? By the time it gets back to me, wide receiver is going to be slim. So I'd actually rather go on ahead and just take a wide receiver here. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to take the guy I feel most confident about that's still on the board, Kelvin Benjamin. I'm not taking a tight end at this point because I'm just going to explain really quickly. I'm not going to take a tight end at this point because based on what's left at tight end, I just don't feel comfortable about picking one of them at this point. Like a Charles Clay, Martellus Bennett, Ladarius Green, Antonio Gates, like Heath Miller, all those guys I would feel at least okay with drafting as my tight end 1, but not at the point that I was drafting at. Especially when there's so many auto picks that are going to pick like defenses and kickers right about now. The Detroit defense, that's interesting. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. I also keep forgetting that, yeah, hi, I'm back. I also keep forgetting that Yahoo has only 6 bench spots, so I really need to keep that in mind when it comes to, like, okay, how many more players can I take? Looks like I only really can take one more wide receiver and one more running back, and then backup quarterback and a backup tight end. With that in mind, I'm kind of considering my options here. But as you notice here, all the kickers and defenses are being taken now. And I'm just looking down my own board here. Like Denver's defense, like there are a lot of defenses that are like New Orleans' defense. Look at how low they're ranked. They're ranked below Dallas on Yahoo's rankings. That's just, and Matt Prater. I think Matt Prater went off the board before Steven Hauschka. Which, like, what? Yeah, he went off the board before Steve Hauschka. Matt Prater is suspended for the first 4 games of the season. It's like Yahoo's rankings don't recognize that, really. Let's see. When it gets back around to me, Sean's going to draft a kicker. Michael may or may not draft a kicker, but yeah, they'll draft a kicker. They draft a kicker, so Antonio Gates. Okay. Now he's screwing with me because now he's taking a backup tight end at this point. No, he's taking a starting tight end. I did not know that. Wow. Okay, never mind. I was actually the dumb one. He hadn't taken a starting tight end. And Jennifer just took a starting defense. Okay. I was about to get angry because I thought she was taking a backup defense, but no, she didn't. Okay. I will be taking first Death. Philip Rivers, just probably to screw certain people over. And then after that, I'm kind of thinking about taking a running back, but I was also thinking about taking a tight end. Once you get to a certain point with tight ends, I'm going to take a running back because there's just... No, I'm going to take a running back, and I'm going to take Lamar Miller, who should not have made it this far. I know I haven't really taken a tight end at all, but the way I see it, there's just more value out there right now with other players. Like, Lamar Miller should not have made it to 127th. I know it's an auto pick, but come on. Okay, now Jennifer took a backup defense. At this point, I'm probably going to take two defenses. Now that I think about it, and now they're taking backup quarterbacks, which is fantastic for me because I already took my backup quarterback. So I'm not really. That's one spot that isn't going to concern me at all. Did Michael leave? Because if he didn't, he's actually making sensible moves now. And that's kind of terrifying. Because if he's still here, I mean, it's making me so sad because he was like easily the most awesome part of this draft, and now he's actually drafting sensibly. Maybe he was doing that on purpose. Maybe he was doing that on purpose so that he could actually shock everybody by doing pretty well after the fact that he made some really terrible moves. But no. And as you'll notice, look at all so much talent going on the board now. If it goes pretty much down the board, I'm probably looking at Heath Miller as my tight end. Not ideal, but excuse me. I mean, I'll live with it. I'm saying if it goes down the board. Maybe it won't go down the board, and I'll get someone like Charles Clay, Martellus Bennett, Ladarius Green. That wouldn't be too shabby. But, yeah, I'm pretty much bracing myself. I would say on the whole, thanks to the idiocy of some people, thanks to some people doing really dumb things, I think I've done pretty well. Jennings and Tate I'm pretty excited about as my running back core because even though I don't really see a viable RB1 per se, they're both guys that are going to be the top running backs in their systems, no doubt about it. And my wide receiver core, I would say that's the best wide receiver core I have drafted in any mock draft. I feel really good about it. Excuse me. Okay, so 9 more picks and it gets back to me. Dwayne Bowe goes off the board. Yeah, I think Ladarius is going to go off the board before I get to him, so I'm probably going to be stuck with Heath Miller. I mean, if it goes down the board, then that's what's going to happen. And I think, like I said, I'm going to probably draft 2 defenses. Because, I mean, I normally don't do that, but with the quality of defenses that are going to be out there, it probably makes more sense so that way I could pick and choose based on matchups. And I figure, well, Kelvin Benjamin can step up and be would step up and be my replacement for these guys whenever they're on their bye week. So I don't really even ever need to have another wide receiver because I pretty much got the top one. I've got it. Yeah, I think that my next move is going to be, well, did he leave? Ah, there we go. He drafts another Cleveland wide receiver. Now he's going back to his old ways. That makes me happy. Mark Ingram off the board. Wow. Oh, that makes me upset. But I guess it really doesn't because now I'm probably going to get Ladarius Green with this pick, so I can't really complain. It could be a lot worse. Yeah, Andy Dalton. Okay. Well, go on ahead and just draft Ladarius as my number 1. And as my number 2, personal favorite of mine this season, Travis Kelce. I mean, Michael is giving me a lot of entertainment, so I'm not going to complain, to be honest. Okay, Jarrett Boykin, assuming that Andre Williams is going off the board here soon. Like I said, I'm going to be drafting 2 defenses. Draft Joe Flacco. I like that. That's good. I like Joe Flacco as a backup this year. Jordan Matthews. I like Baby Hawk, too. Especially now that Josh Gordon is probably going to be suspended for the whole season. This guy's a Cleveland fan because obviously Ray Agnew. Either that or he's just doing it to be cutesy. Like, to be a fake Cleveland fan, basically. Well, you know, whatever. Let's see. What am I going to do for defense? I guess it really depends on if anybody drafts a backup defense. I don't know. We'll see. I guess I can go on ahead and look up the defenses just to see what all is there. This is interesting, though. Buffalo is ranked higher, and Indianapolis are ranked higher than Baltimore and Tampa Bay, which I definitely do not agree with. So I might actually be able to pull that off without too much of an issue. All right, let's see. What all? Oh, Buffalo's defense gone. Now I'm going to have a little more trouble. See, yeah, that's another reason why I loathe the auto pick. Because the auto pick actually thinks, yes, take a backup defense. That guy's starting defense, I think, was Cincinnati. Yeah, I would not draft a backup defense with the Bengals defense at all. That's an every week defense. Josh McCown goes off the board. Yeah, I would not draft a backup defense with Cincinnati's. There are like 4 or 5, well, okay, maybe more like 7 or 8 defenses that I would absolutely not draft a backup defense. If the situation called for it, I would probably not draft. Like if the situation called for it, I might still draft a defense, but normally it doesn't. In this situation, it's definitely warranted for me anyway, because I've got to take a backup defense. The options there are just not going to be all that great. Unless I think of it from the standpoint, okay, could I draft a 5th wide receiver? And I'm thinking about it. It really depends on what all falls to me on defense. I mean, if I can wind up getting the Baltimore defense this late, I would take that in a heartbeat and run. And maybe that would just be my only defense. But it's iffy all the same, because I could always go with, say, the New Orleans or Green Bay defenses, but if I do that, I'm probably going to want to draft their backups, but their rankings are dumb, but I would still feel like taking both of them in that case. Eifert is a guy I'm pretty high on. I mean, I'm a Bengals fan, so of course I should be high on him. But I'm also high on him from a standpoint, too, because I don't buy, really, Jermaine Gresham being too much of a threat to him this year. They're also going to run a lot of two tight end sets. So, obviously, they're going to get a lot of run. Oh, John picked Miles Austin. He picked a Cleveland player. Now Michael has to scramble around for someone. Malcolm Floyd. That's not a scramble. That's a decent pick. Let's see. Doug Baldwin. She's probably going to take a... Oh, no, she took Jericho Cotchery. Good for her. Even if these two go backup defense, I'm still looking at, like, Tampa Bay. Okay, so I'm looking at Baltimore as my starting defense, and that's pretty good. Excuse me. I'm trying to decide, though, do I want to take a backup defense with that in mind? Take the Baltimore defense to start no matter what. Thank you. Now, what all is out there as far as fifth wide receivers at this point? James Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Allen Hurns, Tavon Austin. I could probably get one of them. Wait, Matt Bryant. Matt Bryant. That's who I want. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry for taking so long there. Yeah, Matt Bryant. I pretty much like him over all of the guys that were above him because of his offense. And like I said, I do feel fairly confident that there's going to be a good wide receiver for me to take at this point now, and because I like the Baltimore defense enough that I don't necessarily feel like I have to have a backup. I'm absolutely confident with that. Okay. Now, let's see who has been taken off the board. Just okay, McFadden, Fitzpatrick. Okay. By the time it gets around to me, it'll be a, like 30 pick. About 30 picks. No, a little over 20. I was actually wrong. It'll be about 20 picks now. And he took Brian Hoyer. He's a Cleveland fan. I should have known. By the time it gets around to me, there's a distinct chance Tavon Austin may not be there, which means I'm probably going to be staring down the barrel of Denarius Moore. And if that winds up being the case, then I'm just going to draft a backup defense. All right, maybe not. Tavon Austin might be there now. But I'm still staring down the barrel of a backup defense if things go according to plan. Well, then again, maybe I could count on Michael to make one more stupid decision. All right, he took Blair Walsh. Wait. Okay, no, he did. He's going to draft a defense with his last pick, too. Okay. Mercedes Lewis. Getting to the last pick, finally. So I can move on to Fantasy Football Calculator, where I'm pretty sure that people actually draft like real people, or at least close to it. Oh, Danny came back. Welcome back, Danny. Look at your stupid team. I don't know why you came back, but look at your stupid team. Excuse me. Kerry Robinson being ranked 152nd is kind of insane. Now that I think about it, I could have, if I decided not to go with, say, Sankey or Miller, like as my fourth running back, I could have went with him as my, wow. I can actually buy him doing a backup defense there. I just wouldn't, and he took the Jets defense. And again, really auto pick. Not only did you pick a backup kicker for him, you took a backup kicker with the same bye week. That's just dumb on Yahoo's part. That's not his fault. A backup kicker that has the same bye week. I mean, if you're going to draft a backup kicker for someone, at least give them the same a different bye week. And again, another guy, same bye week. I mean, my God. What is wrong with you, Yahoo? And then Stephen Hoshka. See, I was actually kind of anticipating, and Grant, the Gano, I was kind of anticipating backups starting to be taken. That's why I took the defense and the kicker when I did. And, of course, he drafts the Cleveland kicker because, of course, he would. That'd be the Giants defense. Yes. Ryan Suckup. And this means I'm going to get one hell of a talent at wide receiver because everyone's taking backup defenses. I'm kind of torn, actually, between Sanu and Tavon Austin. Sanu and Tavon Austin. But Tavon Austin is a proven wide receiver. Wabam. Mr. Irrelevant. I cannot believe he was Mr. Irrelevant. Tavon Austin. Amazing. Shut up. I drafted. Thank you. Yeah, I killed this mock draft because, yeah, whatever. Okay, I'm leaving this page. Thank God. Oh, and hey, apparently that actually caused the my Chrome to crash. Well, not crash, but get, you know what I mean. I'm gonna go on ahead and reload here and go on to Fantasy Football Calculator. And I think I said that I'd do NFL.com mock drafts, mock draft. I think instead I'm just going to do a Fantasy Football Calculator draft and then stop here. Excuse me. And I think for this one I'm going to do a 2 QB draft. I think I'm going to do a 2 QB draft for this one. It's only going to be a 10-teamer. I usually like to do 12-teamers just to give myself that much of a harder time, but all right, here we go. Now that I actually know to do this before the draft, it's so much better to actually have that knowledge. I also have a team named Doing This Draft. That's pretty succinct. Okay, we got a couple minutes to go until this draft starts. So I'm actually going to take another short break, but I will be back in a moment. So give me 2 minutes and then skip ahead. Skip ahead 2 minutes and I should be back. So if you're watching this later on after it's been recorded and all that, and it's on YouTube. So yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, hey, I got back just in time for the start of this two-quarterback mock draft. I guess as you've noticed, there actually are some computers in this mock draft, sadly, because I guess two QB drafts are not really all that popular here on Fantasy Football Calculator. But I really wanted to do a two-quarterback mock draft, so here we are. Okay, top three. This is my strategy whenever I'm in a two QB draft. If the top three quarterbacks are off the board, I take a running back, one of the top three running backs. And if I'm not in the first 6 picks, then I just look for the best possible value. So basically that's my argument. I'm in the first 6 picks, I want either one of the top 3 quarterbacks or one of the top 3 running backs, without a doubt. All right. Again, I will be right back in like 30 seconds. So, well, maybe not because everyone's actually picking pretty quickly. Okay, then. Calvin Johnson at the end of the first is kind of insane, and Demaryius Thomas too. That's insane. The one thing I am curious about is this isn't a standard format. I never really did get this. With that in mind, what is the format? Does it become 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers? Then I don't know. Okay, Marshawn Lynch, Tom Brady, Cam Newton. I would actually. Yeah, I'm gonna take Dez. Because in this scenario, in a 10-teamer, I can still get a quality quarterback in the 3rd round that I would feel comfortable starting as my QB1. All right, I will be right back in a second, and I'll explain more. I'll explain this more when I come back. Okay, I'm back for the long haul now, so here we go. Let me explain. In a 10-teamer, I feel confident I can get a good quality quarterback at this point as my QB1. And I can get a top 3 talent with my first 2 picks, which I did in LaShawn McCoy and Des Bryant. Look at the quarterbacks that are still on the board here. Jay Cutler, Tony Romo, Russell Wilson. I'm going to go on ahead and take Jay Cutler, though. Like, I would normally take Russell Wilson. If this was a 12-teamer, I would have taken Russell Wilson. But it's not. And given the fact that, I mean, I am kind of worried that Russell Wilson won't make it to me. But Jay Cutler, to me, is the only guy that I would probably take ahead of him at this point. So, even if I don't get him, I'm not going to be too hurt about it, I guess. Like, I'll take Andy Dalton as my QB2. In this kind of league, I would take Andy Dalton as my QB2 because he's going to be consistent. You always hear the word inconsistent with him, and that's not true at all. He's not going to be inconsistent. Not even close. Excuse me. There goes Wilson. That stinks. I totally get it, but it does make me kind of upset because I really would have wanted Wilson as my RB2. QB2, I should have said. Alshon Jeffrey off the board. Well, I guess I'll be Phillip Rivers is a good consolation prize. I really like Phillip Rivers this year too. I like Cutler, I like Rivers, and I like Wilson. If I can get 2 of those 3 guys, if I don't get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, I'm happy. and there's still so much depth out there. Um, look at I just want to point this out to you. Look at the running backs: Alfred Morris, Zach Stacy, Andre Ellington, I guess Reggie Bush, Rashad Jennings, Toby Gerhardt. Look at the wide receivers: Keenan Allen, Vincent Jackson, Roddy White, Victor Cruz, Pierre Garcon, Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. There's so many options right now. The one thing that does concern me, though, is that so many people have already taken quarterbacks that so many teams have already taken two quarterbacks that the depth's going to start to get a little less awesome. But I'm confident because I've at least taken two quarterbacks that I feel are possible QB1s and have them together as QB1 and QB2. Okay, I will be right back. Again, I said I was going to be here for the long haul. I'm sorry. I'll be right back, though. Okay, back just in time, it looks like, because my pick's coming up very shortly. I'm going to get a pretty good option here at wide receiver or running back. But I think I'm going to go on ahead and draft Toby Gerhardt here because, well, actually, now that I think about it, I could probably wait if I wanted to because I could then get Ben Tate and then go on ahead and get a viable wide receiver, one possibility with Vincent Jackson. I can probably wait. Excuse me. We'll see if I was wrong, though. Oh, yep, there's a lot of guys that are already on auto pick. This should actually go pretty fast then. And actually makes sense compared to, the Yahoo drafts. Let's see. Needs a wide receiver, needs a wide receiver. Needs a second quarterback for that. Okay, take. Wow, I was not expecting that. Okay, Toby Gerhardt in the sixth. Okay, I wasn't really expecting that, but I was thinking about taking Ben Tate, but I wasn't really expecting Gerhardt to make it to me in round 6, and lo and behold, he makes it to me. Okay, that'll do. Excuse me. Let's see, what do I want to do with the next couple of picks, though, is going to be the question. I mean, at this point, I'm probably going to be looking at depth. I don't really... Like, tight end is going to be okay because even if you wind up getting to, 11th out, like, the first 10 tight ends, the first 9 tight ends have been taken, I feel pretty good about the 10th and 11th tight ends as workable tight end ones. Let's see. What happens here? Manuel Sanders needs another wide receiver. Needs another quarterback. Yeah, Marcus Colson. There we go. He needs another wide receiver. Cordarrelle is right there. No, it takes Spiller. He went running back. Well, computer, obviously. I'm kind of interested to see what this guy does because he needs a second quarterback. I'm actually thinking about going. Never mind. He took Ben Tate. You bastard! How dare you? Well, that makes my decision pretty easy. I'm taking Cordarrelle Patterson. and thus I become the third person to take a wide receiver to take a third wide receiver. I can't believe he took Ben Tate though. Like I don't mind. Like Ryan, you notice I didn't take Ryan Matthews and instead took a third wide receiver. But Ryan Matthews, to me, I don't see the injury concerns with Ryan Matthews, if that makes sense. I don't see them. Not this year. He was healthy last year. I just don't see the concern. Finally goes with the second, computer goes with the second wide receiver, and of course he goes with the concussion-riddled Wes Welker. Ugh. Sadly, this isn't a PPR league, because then I would just go on ahead and take Pierre Thomas. Excuse me. I'll just take Lamar Miller. He threw me off by taking Ben Tate, though, because I was so ready to take Ben Tate. He beat me to the punch. But I guess in that sense, that makes up for me taking Gerhardt away from him, because I think he was going to take Gerhardt, and I took him away. So I guess that makes us even now I think about it. Let's see. Okay, he just took his second quarterback. It looks like there's only one team that needs a second quarterback, and that would be Riddle. T.Y. Hilton off the board as the second wide receiver finally for Red Bat. The good news is that as far as tight end is concerned, like I said, I feel confident with like any number of these guys as my starter at tight end. And that's like in a 12-teamer, that's a little difficult because then you could suddenly be stuck with the Martellus Bennett. But in a 10-teamer, you're probably going to get one of these guys. And I'm okay if you don't get one of the top three, and I'm okay with that. Okay, he takes Ryan Tannehill. There goes Jeremy Maclin. CPU takes Kyle Rudolph. Okay. Excuse me. Sure. Why not? Okay. Jason Witten. Then you take Pierre Thomas. I'll take Jason Witten. Because I was going to go tight end anyway, but him taking Pierre Thomas pretty much made that a guarantee. I'm not really sure what to do here, actually, at this next pick. It's kind of insane that I would have to say that. I don't really know what I'm going to do here. But once you start getting to this point of the draft, you start to think, okay, what do you now you need to start thinking about what are you looking to do with your bench? Are you going to take, say, well, yeah, now they're starting to take backup quarterbacks, which personally I'm not doing that yet because look at that. Sam Bradford is still ranked pretty high. That's kind of ridiculous. I've got two pretty good quarterbacks. I could probably wait on a quarterback. Let's see, two more picks to go before I get there. Okay, Eric Decker, CPU, takes Stephen Ridley. I will take Danny Woodhead to give me my fourth running back. And then I'm probably going to look at taking a fourth wide receiver. And then after that, then I'm looking at my defense, my kicker, and then somewhere like a third quarterback, and then either a backup tight end or a backup wide receiver. Another wide receiver. He goes Alex Smith, which actually that makes sense. He needed to take a third quarterback there because his second quarterback's Eli Manning. He needs to take a third quarterback here, so he'll probably take Jake Locker. I'm looking at Blake Bortles. I'm just really high on him, and especially with the mindset that Cutler and Rivers' bye weeks are going to be at the middle point of the season. By that point, Blake Bortles should probably be the starter. But I'm not taking... I would normally take Jake Locker, but there's just no scenario where I could take him and it would be viable. And the CPU, of course, takes Sam Bradford. There's 3 different options I'm going to go with here at wide receiver I could go with. So no matter what this guy does, I'm okay with it. Reggie Wayne. I'll take Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin was going to be my top choice, even if he took Brandon Cook, say. But if he took Kelvin Benjamin, then I probably would have taken Reggie Wayne. If that's pretty much how it would have went. So I'm okay with that. I got my 4th wide receiver, and he's a good one. So, and bye week wise, it works too. All right, here we go. Now what's going to happen? They don't need a backup quarterback. Did they take kicker? No. Okay. Seattle defense in the 11th round actually is pretty good, even in a 10-teamer. That's not bad. And there is Jake Locker. I think doing this draft might actually be my doppelganger because, well, okay, he likes MJD, which I like him a lot this year too. He likes Jordan Cameron. He likes Russell Wilson as a QB1. He likes Jake Locker as a backup, as a QB3. I mean, he kind of reminds me a little bit of me. I don't think I'm going to take a tight end here. I don't think I'm going to take my backup quarterback here because even if I get, like, shafted and get, like, Geno Smith, that's not the worst thing in the world. Oh, he took Geno Smith. Okay. Oh, never mind. I don't really know what to do here if I don't take another wide receiver. Yeah, pretty much going to have to be a backup tight end. And I think in this case it's going to be Zach Ertz. Because I'm really high on Zach Ertz. And, see, okay, that guy has now taken one guy that's out for the year and then another guy that's probably going to be out for the year. Bravo, CPU. Bravo. You not know what you do. That guy doesn't need a backup quarterback. That guy doesn't need a backup quarterback. So I think I'm good. All right, Blakey. You're getting picked. Come to me. Excuse me. That might be a little bit of a reach, actually, now that I think about it, but honestly, Johnny Manziel is probably the only guy I may have considered there. But I just wouldn't have done it personally. I probably value Bortles a little higher than Manziel, and then compared to everybody else, I'm just way higher on Bortles than everybody else that was still out there. Way higher. Excuse me. Oh, on just a second. Okay. I just needed to take a quick break there, I guess. I won't give you the details of why I took that short break, just to be nice. And CPU, like, they need to change the rankings, because this is ridiculous. Matt Prater as the #1 kicker, when he's been suspended for the first 4 games of the season, they need to change their rankings now. Yeah, I'll go on ahead and take the Cincy defense at this point. Obviously, the second last pick, but I was kind of contemplating the possibility of taking a kicker. But Cincinnati defense, I would say, is a little more value than whoever I get a kicker. Some interesting kicker choices. Matt Bryan and Nate Freeze. Or is it Freezy? Freezy? I mean, they picked two high-powered offenses. I'm not going to complain about that. That's smart. If I were this guy's just not going to draft a defense or a kicker, I guess. Okay, then. Congratulations, buddy. Mason Crosby, and that means Steven Hauschka is mine, as he basically is in every league for me, or close to it, if I can get him. Because normally I don't really reach out and try to get Steven Gostkowski early. So generally I end up with either one of Matt Bryant, Steven Hauschka, or Phil Dawson. Usually those are the ones I end up with. And this draft is over. Only the CPUs seem to make really dumb decisions. The actual real live players made smart decisions. And that's what it's like on Fantasy Football Calculator if you're drafting with real people. Real people know what they're doing. CPUs don't know what they're doing. And I think with that, I'm going to go on ahead and stop this here. I might go on ahead and do another video live broadcast, whatever, for NFL, maybe some other mock drafts, maybe even a real draft. I'm not sure, but regardless, I think I'm going to stop here. Whoever watches after this, thank you for watching. I'm Red, and go out and have fun drafting. That's not a good catchphrase. I will see you guys later. That's not a catchphrase. That's just, I'll see you guys later. Yeah. Goodbye for now.